And I would like to invite my panelists to come on stage with me, and I would like all of you to welcome them warmly. So they are Andrew Cody and Jenny Thould. You can bring your stools closer, and then you can sit down and be comfortable. Adjust your microphones. I will introduce. You can have it at your side, however you feel comfortable. Please make yourselves at home, as if you have high table stools and microphone stands at home. And there we go, and we're going to do this. I think the most important thing tonight, I would like to remind everyone that we are here to criticize ideas. We're not here to criticize people. So we will not tolerate any personal attacks on people. You may disagree with some of the things.
You suck.
Get out right now. Right now. So you may disagree with what some of the people on stage are going to say, and that's perfectly fine. There's a microphone right there. There will be a period where you can come to the microphone and ask questions to our debaters. But I would like to ask you to stick to questions pertaining to what they are saying and not who they are. I think we can all be civil in this discourse. Thank you, Eric, for the slow clap.
Actually pretty rapid.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's all relative, isn't it? As Albert Einstein was fond of saying. So I will start by introducing who our panelists are tonight. So I also have a bit of a cough. Hopefully I'll do a decent job as a moderator. So I would like to introduce, let me pop a pill here. Something here. I have pharmacopoeia here. There we go. Some menthol. Here we go. So, to my right, she is Jenny Thould. She has a master's degree in biomedical sciences. She is a health consultant and freelance writer. She describes herself as agnostic, as a free thinker, and a community activist. And I would like to personally say thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. It wasn't easy finding somebody who wanted to come on stage and debate with us. So thank you very much for being here.
And she's my sister.
And she's my sister, yes. So thank you. And to my left is Andrew Cody. He is a non-destructive testing technician. He studied, yes, he tries not to destroy the things that he tests. That's literally his job, right? That's your job title, isn't it?
Pretty much.
NDT technician. He studied X-ray and gamma ray radiography, as well as Middle Eastern anthropology and archaeology. He is a producer for Moutons No More, and he may be the world's biggest fan of British-American author and debater Christopher Hitchens. So that's Andrew Cody. Thank you, Andrew. You're welcome. And you're all welcome. Yes. So the question tonight that Jenny and Andrew will be debating is the following. Is criticism of religion necessary for freedom of speech? Do you agree with the question?
I agree with the question.
Do you agree with the question?
I agree with the question.
Very good. All right. That's a good step. So is criticism of religion necessary for freedom of speech? I believe Jenny is saying no and Andrew is saying yes. Is that fair? That's it?
That's correct.
All right. Very good. The format of our informal debate tonight is that, first of all, each debater will have between 5 and 10 minutes to make their opening arguments. This will be followed by a 15-minute period during which each debater will ask the other a question in a back-and-forth Q&A kind of way. So there will not be a slew of attacks from one side to the other. I will ask, for instance, Andrew to ask a question to Jenny following something that she said. She will answer it and then ask Andrew a follow-up question. This will take place over a 15-minute period. And after this back and forth, we'll have a 10-minute period for questions from the audience. I will ask people to line up at the microphone at that moment, to use the microphone to keep your questions to the point. We're not looking for statements or counter-arguments, but actual questions to either or both of our debaters. And then we'll have a little break, and after the break, you guys will be coming on stage, and Andrew will be running this particular segment. So, did you guys do a coin toss backstage?
No.
No, okay.
I don't have coins.
I don't have a coin either. Does somebody have a coin?
I do.
Andrea has a coin.
Preferably a toonie and one you don't want back.
Thank you very much. So, how does this go? I just ask one of you guys. So, since Jenny, you agreed to be here, do you want head or tails? Do you want the polar bear, or do you want the queen, who's looking quite old on this one?
The polar bear, not
the polar bear. Okay. So, if you get the polar bear, then you get to choose if you want to start or if Andrew wants to start. So it's a polar bear.
Yay.
All right. So, what do you want to do?
I'm gonna let Andrew
You're
start.
gonna let Andrew start? All right, Andrew, do you want to do your toonie, or we can keep it there?
No.
Oh!
There's your donation.
Thank you. All right, so Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to personally thank everyone who came out tonight, and I'd like to thank Jenny in person for coming out tonight and having this discussion with me. Given the crowd that we have tonight, I feel that I might possibly be the person that has the opinion of the majority, so I want you to keep in mind that free speech matters very dearly to me, and so it's important and imperative that you give Jenny the same respect to voice her opinions and without interruptions. So we've been asked to talk about a topic that says, is it right to basically to criticize and ridicule religion? Is it essential as a part of freedom of speech? Well, anyone in the audience who knows me personally knows that not only do I find it essential, but I think it's the highest and most necessary form of freedom of speech. We live in a multicultural society, a society where the best aspects of the cultural practices on the planet are given the opportunity to thrive and be enjoyed by all constituents. We all enjoy the fruits of all different cultures. We enjoy the food, the music, the art, the culture. But keep in mind that with all this wonderful stuff that comes over to us, we also are infested and we inherit the sludge-infested backwater that we call religion. A religion is a set of ideas. This is how I look at religion. It's a set of ideas. It's the way people kind of view the earth and how we understand ourselves and our placement on this earth. For instance, there are people in the society who believe that a bearded man created a dirt man and a rib woman. And he created them in a special garden and invented this talking snake. And this talking snake convinced people to eat of a magical fruit. And that magical fruit and the eating of it is what has caused all the disease, pain, strife, and trouble in our society today. There are others that believe that an angel named Gabriel came down from the sky and talked to a not-so-virgin Mary and convinced her that her child that she was being conceiving was actually a future God, and that this God was going to die and sacrifice himself to himself in order to forgive for himself of all the horrible and terrible things and the laws that we can't live up to. It's funny because as human beings we have a tough time living up to many misogynistic, homophobic, sexually oppressive, and genocidal laws. There are also some who believe that an angel came down and gave a final revelation to a desert-dwelling barbarian named Muhammad in the Quran, and they believe it's the perfect word of God and the answer to all of life's problems. As you can see, these are all claims, and since they're all claims, they are allowed to be tested and they're allowed to be ridiculed. The moment we pay respect to an idea and figure it to be not fit for satire, not only do we limit the ability for modern-day comedians to have absolutely fantastic material to work with, but we also give special treatment to ideas that are simply just that. They're just ideas. Oh, you're the best. Hold on a second. To our bartender. Okay, fantastique. Here's the thought.
Plus 2 for the French.
Here's the thought experiment. Imagine we lived in a city, let's say Montreal, and in this city, they had a long time history of hockey glory and hockey greatness, and their team happened to be the Montreal Canadiens. Along came a young man from the Niagara region who moved up here and happened to be a fan of the Bruins. Yes, I'm talking about myself. Now, as a fan of the Bruins, I am an arch enemy to most of the people who are fans of the Canadiens here in Montreal. Now imagine this young fan is reading the Montreal Gazette one day, and in the Montreal Gazette he finds a cartoon of the captain of the Boston Bruins, and he's made to look like a buffoon, a big 6'9" Neanderthal, and I find it offensive. Now, how do you as a society view this to me? I mean, I'm a person who watches every single hockey game. I read all the articles. You might even consider it religious, how much I follow hockey. Now, in this situation, do you feel sorry for me? Do you think the Gazette should refrain from posting articles or cartoons that insult the team that I like? Do you think that because I'm a Bruins fan, I should not be subject to this sort of ridicule? What should I do? Should I protest? Should I burn an effigy of Carey Price on my front lawn? Or perhaps maybe go into the offices of the Montreal Gazette with the AK-47 and shoot the cartoonist who might have done the cartoon? When we say that religious ideas can't be challenged, ridiculed, it lends legitimacy to the cultural and barbaric practices that occur within these religions. For example, the genital mutilation of children, the forced marriages of women, the treatment of homosexual people as less than human, the scandals involving pedophilia, child brides, and honor killings. These are all things that are very paramount to things that happen in religion. I find it very important that we can criticize these ideas. Ideas need to be challenged. If you can't challenge things like that, or things like, what really happened on 9/11? Or was the Holocaust real? It lends a bit of to the fear-mongers and the conspiracy theorists. If you can't challenge religion, it lends credibility to the people who think that kids can be prayed over and not given cancer treatment. Just as a religious person can stand in the subway and hand out pamphlets to me saying that if I don't follow their particular brand of religion, that I'm going to spend the rest of my life burning in eternal hellfire, I feel that I have the right to say to them that you are a Bronze Age knuckle-dragger. Just as an angry mob of Muslims have the right to burn a national flag in protest, I feel that I have the right to purchase and desecrate a Quran in any way that I see fit. When you endorse a book where a protagonist marries a child and has sex with her at the age of 9, and call that person the perfect human being, I have the right to make a cartoon where I can satirize and make fun of it. The main objection to the ridicule of religion is it's offensive, and we hear this quite a bit. But with the idea of offensiveness, it's a really difficult thing to talk about, because who do we put in charge of what's offensive? Where do we draw the line? Who gets to say what is and what is offensive to a certain religion? I mean, as a human being, I can find all kinds of different things offensive, and I'm sure as a person yourself, you'll find certain things offensive and certain things not offensive. So do we ask the evangelical, born again, evolution is just a theory, the rapture is coming soon, pray the gay away, you don't need medicine, you need prayer, faction of Christianity? What is the best way we can or can't criticize their religion? And for Muslims, should we commission a Saudi cleric who says women that are raped should be stoned to death and can't drive cars and must wear full potato sacks on their bodies and have their clitoris sawed off? One that says gay people should have the death penalty and anyone who leaves their religion must be killed? Is that who we ask for as to what the sensitivity we should hold when we're talking about their beliefs? Maybe we should ask an Orthodox Jew who believes that the female political leaders should be photoshopped away from the newspaper and women can't be sat on next to a plane. One that believes that circumcision should be performed by their mouth in order to draw the blood away from the genitals that they're recently cutting. What if I say to you that going around and telling people that they're going to burn in hell forever if they don't believe a certain brand of religion is offensive to me? Who's going to protect my rights? By me saying that, does that mean that we get to single-handedly cancel every monotheistic religion? Do we get to make it so that they no longer can speak their minds? I don't think so. There is no person on earth that is capable of making a decision of what is and what is not offensive. People get offended by many different things, and the most important aspect of freedom of speech is to protect the free speech that we don't agree with. This will allow for proper debate and discourse with a whole world of ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Jenny Suni, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Wow, that was interesting. A lot of interesting ideas, a lot of things that I do agree with, but other things that I find are not quite, well, there's a lack of nuance, because when we're talking about religion, we need to really be clear on what we're talking about. I'm not sure it's a good idea to compare religion to a fan who likes hockey. I'm not sure that the comparison is quite, right. So there's a problem there. We need to know what we're talking about. Human beings are spiritual beings. We want to believe in something bigger than ourselves, okay? And from spirituality to religion, there's a difference. But in my opinion, and from what history tells us, there is a link between spirituality and religion. Human societies, whether they're very advanced or not, whether, whatever the difference, the different type of human societies, we do see some sort of attempt to have spiritual explanations about our world, but we do see that religion is something that's really, it's over the years, since human societies have been, religion is not something that you can separate from human societies. In one way or another, you will find religion. So that there tells you that religion is something that is in the human brain, okay? Now, what people decide to do with those ideas is something different. But we do need to acknowledge that there is something very human about the religious sentiment, what I call the religious sentiment. And religious sentiment is close to spirituality, like I said, but when we go into something that is organized religion, then we have something else. So I want you to think about religious sentiment, that's the first thing, and then we have organized religion, and that's something different. That's where you have a set of rituals, a set of rules, and very often organized religion gets caught up with politics. And that's where you start to see that something that started with just the idea of believing something bigger than ourselves, believing that, there's something other than just my little person here, and being able to transcend that feeling, goes to something else. It's basically, when we think about religion, we need to think about a bunch of people who come together to share common beliefs. And they have the right to those beliefs. People have the right to think. People have the right to feel a certain way. And that there's nothing wrong with that. So we need to respect that. How people feel and what they think needs to be respected. Okay? Now, what an organized religion does is something different. And we need to make that distinction. And when we don't make it, that's where there's a problem. So the question, just to go back to that question, is it necessary to offend? I think it's okay to criticize, I think it's okay to challenge, and we should do it. But is it necessary to offend how people feel and what they think? Okay, because we're talking about religious sentiment and not about how a religion is organized. That's something else. Okay, so is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. It depends on the context. It depends on why you're doing it and who's in front of you. So basically, if I'm talking to someone and I know they feel a certain way, I'm a person who's reasonable enough to figure out, okay, should I offend this person at this time in this context right now? we always do it on an individual basis. When you're speaking to someone, you're always thinking, okay, what can I say to this person? What is okay to say to this person or not okay to say? And let's take religion out of it for a second. If I'm just talking to someone on the street, do I find it necessary to offend them because, you know, they said something stupid or they did something I don't agree with? No, it's not necessary. It's not wise. I might waste my time. I have to go to work, and you know what's going to be the what's going to be gained from me insulting someone on the street that, you know, just did something stupid? You know, we do it all the time as individuals living in a society. We have to figure out how to interact with other people. So what I'm saying is, if we can do it on an individual basis, we can also do it when it comes to groups of people. I don't think it's necessary to offend groups of people, especially if those groups of people are going through a rough time. If for a number of reasons at this point of time they're being stigmatized in some way, it's not necessary, and it's even unwise to offend a whole group of people. So we need to take that into consideration. So right now, the group that's being stigmatized the most are Muslims. Since 9/11, since 9/11, 2001, these people have been lumped together like in a group, like there's Muslims and they're all the same, and they're extremists, and they're doing all those bad things. And it's true for the extremists. If we're talking about extremists, we need to know what percentage of people we're talking about. But it's not true for the billions. I think there's what, like 1.9 billions of Muslims in the world, and they're all extremists, and we should all offend them when we're talking about their religion? No, we should not. And when extremists do something, how do we know they're doing it in the name of their religion? They say they're doing it in the name of their religion, but moderates say that no, this is not our understanding of our holy book. Now, personally, I'm agnostic. Whether it's the Quran or the Bible or whatever, I'm not one to think that a book that was written by humans is sacred. That's me. But if someone believes that, and it makes them, and it helps them get through with their day, it helps them be a good person in their lives, and they need that, and that's, you know, I personally don't need that to be a good person, but they feel that they need that, and they feel that it makes them feel good. Why is it necessary for me to offend them? It's not necessary. It's not. I have the right to do it. I do have the right to offend them. That's true. I believe we should have the freedom to do it. But I think I should be wise enough not to do it. If I'm in a bar and I see a Muslim girl sitting at a table and someone's being really mean to her and she's crying, and you know, the person goes and leaves, and then she starts saying, well, at least, you know, I have my religion to make me feel better. I don't think it would be necessary for me at that time to tell her that her book is stupid and it's, you know, it's based on bullshit. It's not necessary for me to tell her that at that time. She's crying, she's not feeling good. It's not necessary. It's unwise. So I see no point in offending people that are being stigmatized, that are not right now viewed in the best of light, and it's not fair for most of Muslim people, because they have nothing to do with the extremists who are doing all the bad things that we see on TV. So that's it. So I think we need to really make a big distinction between religious feelings, which is one thing, organized religion, which is very often, unfortunately, let's say, taken as a pretext by political leaders for other reasons. It's being instrumentalized for their own power, and that's something else. We need to make that distinction. And
You have 1 minute on the clock.
and basically that's it. We have to be wise enough as human beings to know when something is unnecessary, even though we have the right to do it.
Thank you very much, Jenny. All right. So we've got our opening arguments. So for the next segment, we have 15 minutes. I would again ask our panelists to be respectful to each other. Since Jenny, you won the coin toss, I will start with Andrew. The way this works, once again, is Andrew, you're allowed to ask Jenny a question regarding what she said, and Jenny, you will answer it and then ask a question back to Andrew, and we'll do this for a little while. So Andrew, you've got the microphone.
Well, since Jenny did comment on some of the things I said, I feel it only necessary that I be able to comment on some of the things that maybe Jenny might have raised.
Keep in mind that we're looking more at questions and comments.
Yes, but I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a rebuttal of each other's.
Yes, go ahead.
In respect to people's religious beliefs, you said that we need to respect them. Well, I respect them in the same way that I respect their idea that their wife is beautiful and that their kids are intelligent. I believe that people should have the right to hold these beliefs, but to hold these beliefs without criticism, and for me not to be able to make a cartoon, because let's say I'm making a cartoon that's of Muhammad in order to provoke the extremists, at the same time it's going to offend the moderates. I don't feel that I should have to hold off on that sense just because I might hurt someone's feelings. I don't believe that free speech necessarily entitles... I understand your concept from the bar, and I don't think most people in any given situation would see a Muslim girl in the bar and walk up and say, hey, you're dumb for believing in this, to which I agree. But one thing you mentioned is we are all spiritual beings, and we're all looking for certain spirituality. I would like to know what your definition of spiritual and spirituality is.
Well, I think that there's the physical world, you know, I can touch my arm and everything, but my thoughts, I can't touch them, right? What I'm thinking is not something I can touch. It's not something that's solid. So we all realize that beyond tangible physical things, there's feelings, there's thoughts, and there's this aspect of, there's this dimension that is not tangible. And that leads us to questions. There are things that we question ourselves about. We question ourselves about our feelings, our thoughts. And some people will, from those questions, they will develop a series of feelings or ideas to describe what is not, what they can't touch, what's not material, okay? So that's what I call being spiritual. We're all spiritual beings. And personally, I don't feel the need to have organized religion to acknowledge that beyond what is the material world, there is another world which is not something, well, not yet at least, not something that I can measure and touch and, you know, something that I can describe as I would be able to describe the material world.
Jenny, did you have a statement for Andrew, a question for him?
Well, yes. So basically you're saying that no one would do that, like in a situation where there's, you know, this Muslim girl crying.
I wouldn't say no one would do that. I'm saying I wouldn't do that personally.
Okay, you wouldn't do it personally.
I can't attest for what anyone else would do.
So, I mean, it's just, I think it's just a question of common sense. If we can exercise common sense on an individual basis, why can't we do it when groups of people are involved?
Well, to speak to that one example in particular, I mean, if you look at someone who would go up to somebody in the bar, and let's say they were a Muslim, and were to rip on the person's Muslim, I'm one to believe personally that the average human being that's around would see this as, wow, look at this asshole ripping on this person at a bar. And anything you do with free speech, you have to realize that there's consequences. If I'm going to go around, yelling that, all black people are, criminals, or I'm going to run around saying that all Muslims are terrorists, there's going to be a large section of the modern populace that are going to look at me like, look at this idiot. And so you are almost punished, and you can be punished for what you say. And I believe that's a fair punishment. I mean, generally at a bar, if I was to walk up to a Muslim girl and there was all these people around and I would start to berate her, I'm pretty sure that most people would probably look at me like a piece of trash. And that's one of the best aspects of freedom of speech, in my opinion, is that, yeah, you can say what you want to say, but if you aren't careful with what you say, you can look like, an idiot.
Yeah. Well, if we go to the Charlie Hebdo case, I think that lately they've been idiots, honestly, because this is a magazine that's been around for decades. And they started out, the reason why they're called Charlie is because they started out making fun of the French president, Charles de Gaulle. And they decided to call themselves Charlie Hebdo. So they were making fun of people who were in power when they started out. And they made fun of the Catholic Church, they made fun of Jewish, of Muslims, and it was all, but in the beginning, it was really making fun of people that most people don't make fun of, people in power, like the president. That's what they were doing. And with time, especially after 9/11, they sort of focused on Muslims especially. Now there's a lot of discussions going on. People say, no, it's not true. They also made fun of Catholics and Jews. Yes, they did. But at some point, if you look at what they've been doing, if you look at the 70s, 80s, and then just lately what they've been doing, they have stopped, first of all, they stopped attacking the powerful, like the president or politicians. They don't do it anymore. They focus on religion, yes, Muslims, Catholics, and Jews. Not so much the Jews. There's one of the cartoonists who was actually fired for making fun of the fact that the son of the French president, the son of Sarkozy, married a Jewish girl. So he made fun of that by saying now he's going to be a Jew and he's going to make tons of money or something like that. It was stupid anyways, but that's what they do. They do stupid jokes. But he was fired for doing that joke, okay? And so they focused, since 9/11, they focused on Muslims. And in my opinion, they have the right to do it. But was it necessary to focus on Muslims the way they did? I don't think so. They were being insensitive because Muslims in France have a very hard time. They have a lot of a high unemployment rate. A lot of people think that they're all extremists, which they're not, because if you look at crimes in France, it's not mostly Muslims who do it, contrarily to what some people would like to say. So there's a problem there. When you focus specifically on a group of people, you're like that person going in a bar and, just attacking someone who's already down, someone who's crying. That's how I see it.
Do you have a specific question for Andrew regarding the Charlie Hebdo?
No, but I can comment on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I disagree with you. And
that's why we're here.
The reason I do is, I mean, you can say that in the 60s and 70s and 80s maybe they were attacking this, but they're attacking what the most recent issue is. And you can say that, not all Muslims are terrorists, and I would absolutely agree with that. But if you look at the percentage of the most terrorist incidents that have happened in the recent, the majority of them are Muslim terrorist events.
That's not true.
Well, Charlie Hebdo, September 11th, the bombings.
These are the most talked about. That's the thing. We do have some major terrorist events that Muslims did take part in. But when we look at percentage...
Can you give us examples?
Well, yes, the examples of terrorist attacks.
Yes, carried out by non-Muslims.
Well, if you think about terrorist attacks that were carried out in the United States, you have Timothy McVeigh and I believe it was Oklahoma. And,
Oklahoma City bombing, yeah.
Yeah, and there's all those recent ones. I don't remember the names, but there was the one at Fort Hood, which was also not a Muslim. There are a number of actually Muslim mosques being bombed and attacked, and people are not talking about that. Recently, the NAACP offices were bombed, and Muslims were not involved, and people are not talking about that because it's just the NAACP, you know? So that's the thing. I mean, the media focuses on certain events and completely disregards other events. And it looks like, well, you know, it's just those Muslim terrorist attacks that are going on, and that's not true.
But if we look at the media as, in Charlie Hebdo's case, as being a cartoon media.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at the history of attacks against people who have released free speech ideas based on cartoons, you don't see too many Timothy McVeighs, you don't see too many Christians, you don't see too many Jews bombing or burning or shooting up Charlie Hebdo because of, you know, anti-Jewish, anti-Christian, anti-whatever.
In the case of Charlie Hebdo, no.
But also in the case of the Danish cartoons, also in the case of different movies that released, the one with Ian Hersey Ali, The Innocence of Muslims movie, which was stupid, I'll be honest. I think it was absolutely one of the dumbest videos ever released on YouTube. It was absolutely ridiculous, but at the same time, you have the right to be horrible at making movies and horrible at satire and not have to worry about being put to death.
Absolutely. Recently there was a Palestinian cartoonist who was arrested by Israel, the occupation army, and was put in jail. That's a Palestinian cartoonist. People are not talking all that much about that. And he was arrested because he was making fun of the Israeli occupation of the Palestine territories. So that's a case. I mean, what we hear about is what our media is going to talk to us about. And if you're not particularly interested in what's going on in Palestine, you're not going to find out that there's a Palestinian cartoonist who's been arrested.
I'm going to agree 1,000% with you that any Jewish or Palestinian who draws cartoons about the other shouldn't be arrested for their freedom of speech. However, if you do any look into Palestine, you'll find that it's riddled with anti-Semitic cartoons of Jews in many of their newspapers, and many, especially in Saudi Arabia, Palestine, and many of the Islamic
and the other
Sharia law type countries. I mean, you might look at Israel might have some stuff.
A lot of stuff.
But
if you start looking, you'll find them.
I would like to let Andrew finish his point.
If you compare the world around them, I mean, I'm not pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, but you have a world surrounding them where there's cartoons of Jews drinking the blood of children, there's cartoons of Jews eating kids, all kinds of stuff, and a lot of stuff that came from the Elders of the Protocols of Zion or whatever that Hitler was big on back in the day, that's being pushed through the Islamic world, and you see this riddled throughout. But what I have to ask you is that in this situation where this is going on as a constant and normal thing, why don't you see any Jewish people storming a office of cartoons in Palestine and shooting people up? Why don't you see any Jewish people burning down embassies of Palestinian leaders or of Egyptian leaders, of Saudi Arabian leaders, you know, violating diplomatic immunity in that sense? Why don't you see any of this?
Recently, I took an interest to the Palestine, situation, and I hear a lot of violence going on, coming from Israel towards Palestinian who live in Israel or who are in the occupied territories, and it goes from just insulting people that are on the bus or just attacking them. They've been attacking Palestine people. They've been attacking some of the African refugees who moved to Israel. So, I mean, violence is not something that is just just Muslims do. Israel does it. Americans do it. You find violence in all societies, and you find extremists in all societies.
But I'm not really referring to violence in societies as more to violence in the reaction of the speech of another society. I mean, I would agree that you'd find Jews who are violent towards Palestinians. I'd agree you'd find Palestinians that are violent towards Jews. But how come in the society you don't hear of too many Jews getting offended over a cartoon and you know, storming cartoonists in Palestine and shooting everybody up? Why don't you hear about them burning flags and desecrating, you know, a local embassy of one of the Arabs?
Well, in terms of an embassy, I don't see why they would do that, because when people attack an institution that's political, I don't see it so much as a reaction to their religion being offended. I see it as a reaction to a political situation. In the case of the Muslim world, or in the case of Palestine, you have people who are being occupied. You have people who have been subjected to drone attacks, who have been subjected to a number of situations, war-like situations. So they're reacting to that, you know, military intervention. They're not reacting to their religion being attacked. And Israel, last time I heard, was not occupied and did not have any drones, you know, dropping bombs over their heads. So maybe that's why they're not storming embassies.
We have 2 minutes left on the clock.
Okay, well, when dealing with the Danish cartoons, for example, you've had embassies being burned, Danish embassies being burned in over, I think it was 50 different regions throughout the world. And you had mass protests in areas where they don't normally allow protests, like such as Syria and Libya, where normally any kind of group of public display in front of an embassy would be arrested immediately. Suddenly the police didn't show up to these. Now you have this, when the cartoons were released, and you had a massive infestation of the Pakistan, the Egyptian, the Saudi Arabian, different governments talking to the Danish government, saying, basically demanding that they do what they don't have the right to do, which is silence the criticism of religion in their culture, and saying, you need to stop this, you need to do this. You don't see that from anybody else.
That's a good point. You know, recently with the Charlie Hebdo, following the Charlie Hebdo march in Paris, there's been like a counter-protest in Muslim countries, and a lot of commentators said, well, that's strange. I mean, some of these countries, they don't even have the right to protest. What's going on here? And that's where I think we need to look at politically what's going on. Some of the heads of states of these countries wanted us to see that. They told their police to let people go ahead and demonstrate. A lot of those who did demonstrate were extremists. In Egypt, for example, I've heard that a lot of moderates did not want to take part in the protest. So the extremists were let loose on the streets and they were filmed. And this is like, in my opinion, the fact that the heads of states are talking to the Danish government or talking to you know, other heads of states and saying, well, look, you know, if you mess with us, we do have, you know, the Muslim world can stand up and do this. I think it's just political posturing. I think it's really fishy that these people were allowed to protest for this and not for something else.
All right, thank you very much. This is the end of the rebuttal period. A warm round of applause for both of our panelists. Thank you. Now, we have a 10-minute segment for questions from the audience. So if you have a question for either Andrew or Jenny or both, I would ask you to please walk up to the microphone. Don't bite, usually. I would like to ask that you say to whom the question is addressed and to make it short. So who will be our first? Oh, there we go. There is Lois, I believe.
Yeah, great. What's your name?
Andrew.
Andrew. So yeah,
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, we need to bring the
Turn the volume up.
turn the volume up.
It's microphone 4, yeah.
Okay, so before Andrew,
Now we can hear you.
Do you think those cartoonists had a responsibility to not go too far? Because the name of Charlie Hebdo, the subtitle was Irresponsible Journal, newspaper. Do you think they should try to not go too far, or should it just like let them wander and do whatever they feel like they should be doing?
To me, too far is threatening another culture. If I was to say that, I think that, all Islamic people should be killed and we should create a group of people to go out and do this, that's going too far. But who has the right to determine what's too far when it comes to offense in a certain thing? Yeah, you might have a bunch of extremist Muslims over here that say, hey, drawing Muhammad is incredibly offensive to me, and then you might have a bunch of moderate of Muslims that say it's really not a big deal. So at this point, who gets the right to say what is too far?
So you don't think they should think about the consequences, especially about how this kind of drawing can fuel Islamophobia? The fact that like they're gonna give some kind of arguments to people about they should hate. Not because they don't hate a religion, but they make fun of it, and then some people who actually hate it gonna think that other people agree with them.
Can you define what you think Islamophobia is?
I don't like this. Good question.
Islamophobia is actually an irrational fear of Islam.
Okay.
A phobia, is what my good friend taught me here, is an irrational fear. So, if a cartoonist is to make a cartoon and they have a chance to be murdered for the cartoon, I wouldn't call that Islamophobia, or for people to be worried about things that might happen because they insulted a religion. I wouldn't call it a phobia, because if there's a reality that you could be killed for having a certain thought, an idea, an opinion about a religion, I wouldn't call that an irrational fear.
Okay.
Are there other questions from the audience? Please don't be shy. Yes, no, please, come on.
Hi. My question is for Jenny. You said earlier, sorry, I'm forgetting my
You can
question.
ask it in French too, if it's easier.
I had a question just now and I'm forgetting it.
Is it about Charlie Hebdo?
Oh yeah, I got it. So earlier you said that there is terrorism from other groups than Muslims, which I assume is true, but you said that there's a bias in the media on reporting terrorism. But if we want to talk about the topic, which is criticism or ridicule of religion in general, I don't really need to look at the media to see the reaction to the terrorists directed against parodies, because as you can see the parody itself. Like, I see parody of Jesus everywhere, in movies, on South Park, on the television, and on the internet, a lot more than I see for Muslims. Perhaps not for Jews, but there are very few Jews in general compared to Muslims or Christians. And yet, I rarely see terrorist attacks from Christians against parodists, right?
Yes, you have a question for Jenny.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm getting, sorry, I'm taking my time. So, what I think is that because Christians have their religion parodied all the time, they don't really care. They just try to get tough when it happens. Whereas Muslims, since it's rarer, they take offense to it. So don't you think that if the parody of one's religion could also cause them to just get bored of it? In other words, if your religion is always laughed at some point you just stop caring. In which case, there shouldn't be terrorist attacks, right?
Well, if you're talking about moderates, I think that if there's a lot of parodies, a lot of satirical cartoons, they'll get used to it. That's what moderate people do. They get used to it and they get over it. But if we're talking about extremists, I don't think they're going to get over it. I don't think that more, parodies, more satirical cartoons, and some of them, I have to say, were in very poor taste. I've looked at them, and okay, I mean, poor taste is not a crime, and no one should be killed for doing a bad joke or.
But why should we cater to the extremists?
We should not cater to the extremists. We
So
should.
then why are you worried about what we're going to say that would offend the extremists?
What I'm saying, I'm not worried about that. I'm saying that if not an individual, we're talking about a media outlet, we're talking about magazine, decides to focus just on that because they want people to get used to it, because I think that's what the question was about, then they need to take into consideration that extremists are going to react a certain way. So they need to take that into consideration. They need to realize the context that they're living in and, be prepared for whatever might happen, more security guards, or I don't know what, If you decide to focus just on one thing, you need to be prepared for the consequences.
Gabriel.
Oui, Jenny, j'ai une question pour toi.
Oui.
Moi, parce que tantôt, là, tu parlais d'entité spirituelle. Puis moi, je voudrais savoir si ça a un rapport avec l'imaginaire.
Est-ce que tu pourrais reformuler ta question? Qu'est-ce que tu veux dire exactement par ça?
Qu'est-ce que je veux dire par ça? Parce que moi, je tripe ces extraterrestres. Puis,
Oh là
écoute,
là.
pour moi, là, tu sais, c'est pas vraiment vrai, là, mais c'est parce que je m'amuse avec ça.
Ok.
Uh-huh.
Moi, je pense qu'il y a une différence entre l'imaginaire et le spirituel. Ok. Je pense que quand on est dans l'imaginaire, on ne cherche pas nécessairement un sens à sa vie ou un sens à notre monde. Donc quand on est dans la spiritualité, on cherche un sens. Donc c'est très très différent. Il y a une quête dans la spiritualité, tandis que dans l'imaginaire, il n'y a pas nécessairement une quête de sens.
Bon, merci. Merci pour ta réponse.
Merci, Gabriel. Jeff. Who's wearing mismatched soccer socks.
Nice,
Yeah.
I like it.
And a kilt. I hadn't even noticed a kilt.
Freedom of expression.
There you go.
It is Robbie Burns Day.
Okay.
In case anyone didn't know.
So that was your question for Andrew or Jenny?
It's for Jenny.
Okay, good, because he's in the washroom.
Okay.
It's going to be bad.
I think a part of your argument hinged on the difference between criticizing and offending, and it's the second part that we should not do. And I'm surely not the only person here who has ever tried to reason with a fundamentalist, and this doesn't work very well. You can't use rational arguments because they don't understand evidence, they don't understand burden of proof.
Love to kill, brother.
Thank you. You can't appeal to their emotions because their emotions are heavily invested in their beliefs. And as far as I know, the only strategy that remains is to make fun of them and hope that if they see enough people laughing at them, that the realization will eventually sift through that they believe a folly. Of course, I'm talking about fundamentalists, so where you draw a distinction between, you say not all Muslims are the same. I'm talking about the people who are troublemakers. So if you can't do any of those three things, then how do you reach those people?
I think the question was, is it necessary to offend? I'm not saying that we should never offend people, and I think that sometimes we're in situations where we didn't intend to offend a person and we end up doing it. So, we're human beings, it's going to happen, we're going to offend people, whether we want to or not. So, the question is not that, it's not that it should never happen, that we should never offend anyone in any situation. I'm saying that we should be wise enough to know when that is not necessary. So if you're talking to a fundamentalist and you feel that you have no way of getting through to that person and you want to turn it into humor, well, I think that's a good way of doing it. But I'm not sure that if you really attack them and really offend them, you're going to get anywhere. I don't think you're going to help them understand. I mean, the objective is to get them to understand, right?
Do you think it's possible, though, by attacking maybe the one person? Let's say you're attacking the Ayatollah Khomeini back in the day. Do you think by attacking that one person, that maybe you're offending that one person, but the other people around who are listening in and seeing everything go down could possibly be influenced in a positive way, saying, hey, wait a minute, that is kind of humorous, the way he thinks.
I'm always for attacking power. And Ayatollah Khomeini was the head of state. He was the person in power. I think that if we want people to think, we should, we should speak truth to power. And I'm all for that.
We have time for a follow-up question from Jeff. Did you have... No, not sure.
I think I'm good.
All right.
I can ask another question. If you want.
Sure. We have time for a follow-up from Jeff and one last question from the audience. If there's somebody else, please put on your thinking cap. Jeff.
Okay. So if we should not offend religion, let's take the example of Scientology, which is a religion here. But in Germany, if I remember correctly, they classified it not as a religion, but they said that it is a fraudulent and parasitic corporation masquerading as a religion. So
sounds about right.
So how do you decide what's a religion, what's not, and what can be offended and what should not?
That's very tough questions, and a very good question also. And definitely, the question of what is a religion is when we're talking about new beliefs. Recent ones, it's not easy to answer that one. I mean, there's a lot of people who say, no, they're just like, they're a cult. They're not really like a religion, some sort of cult.
Just be careful not to make the classic logical fallacy of the argument from antiquity.
No, I'm not going to do that, but I'm saying that when we're talking about new beliefs, it's a lot harder to figure out what's a religion or not. And I'm not going to say it's a cult and not a religion. I'm not going to, take position on that topic.
Last question goes to Alain.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Alain.
I think this is an interesting subject to talk about, and when we look at the political correctness that seems to quell our
I should be a bit closer to the microphone, sorry.
Okay. So my question is how should we play this game of limbo political correctness, where we're always searching for the lowest point at which people become offended, as the bar. And so we self-censor. And we need to look at that. And, Charlie Hebdo goes a little far. But anything that offers pushback, they push back again. And so basically they're training the modern world to accept critique, caricature, satire. But everybody else is, they're self-censoring. So the same people that link their arms and seem to be in concert with
Charlie? Yeah. I agree with you.
At the very same time, they're reducing the ability to exercise free speech on the internet. So you see the dualism going on there, the self-censorship. So at what point do we say that, oh no, we can't offend anybody, and self-censor to the point where there is no room for critique of any kind?
Is it alright if I go first?
Go ahead.
This is open.
Alain, I don't know if you were here. I didn't see you earlier when I was...
I don't know if he's here. Yes, he's here. He's not a hallucination.
He was here. If he was here, when I was doing my opening, but you touched upon a point that I stated in my opening. I said, what is the line where who is the person that can decide what is and what is not offensive? Where can we draw the line? Where is the bar set? Do we ask the evangelical born again, the end is nigh, pray the gay away, the Christian, what offends them, and go to that extreme? Do we ask the Saudi Arabian cleric who says that women need to have their clitoris cut off and that they can't drive a car and that gays should be stoned to death? Should we ask them what the offensive line is? Or can we look at those people and say, hey, wait a minute, everything that you're saying is pretty fucking offensive to me too, pardon the language. And so, at this line, who is, what is, where is the line that we can draw that? And to be honest with you, my opinion, there is no line. So at that point, you can be as offensive as you want to be because you have no idea what the hell the bar is.
You know, I agree with you. There is no line. I said at the beginning that we have the right to offend. Is it necessary? So that's the question. The question is not where's the line, like when do I go too far? I think there's a context to go too far. But I think we have enough common sense, all of us, and we don't need anyone telling us when it's not appropriate and when it's not necessary to offend. We know it. You don't kick on someone who's already down. We all know that. So the line is, if I'm going to offend the Ayatollah, I'm going to do it because he's not down and he needs to be down, you know. But if I'm, going to offend people who don't have jobs, they have a lot of trouble getting by in Paris, that's not something one should do. So that's it.
Well, when that person,
30 seconds.
When that person who may be down is telling me that, I'm going to burn in hellfire forever because I don't believe their religion, or that, someone like Jonathan is going to burn in hellfire because of his sexuality or whatever, for me not to give pushback is to basically say, self-censor yourself because this person is down, and I have to disagree with you.
If someone is being threatening, or if someone is lecturing you about what's going to happen to you, I think you can push back. That's for sure. But that's not the situation in the Charlie Hebdo case. That's why I think it's important to make nuances what we're talking about. So if we're talking about people, a group of people being stigmatized and going through rough economic times, and we need to know when it's not necessary.
We need a 45 seconds more, Jonathan, because the one thing I have to say...
Okay. All right, one more rebuttal from you, and then Jenny answers.
The one thing I have to say is that when Charlie Hebdo started getting really into certain criticism was after the Danish cartoons, because they were one of the only magazines to repost those cartoons. And it was in solidarity with the fact that, people were killed. Magazines wouldn't reprint these cartoons because of their offensive nature. And so to say that, like, Charlie Hebdo had no dog in the fight, it is not really true, because it was already their profession that had already once, in 2004, 2005, been threatened with the Danish cartoons. And whether you agree with I've seen the Danish cartoons, they're the dick and fart jokes of Muhammad cartoons. However, you have the right to make the dick and fart jokes of Muhammad cartoons. Charlie Hebdo usually has a lot more provocative and thought-inspiring cartoons. Not all the time, but a lot more than those Danish cartoons. But to say that they don't have a dog in this fight when people in their industry have already been attacked for their freedom of speech is to basically say that, I don't know how you see that they don't have a reason to argue this.
Jenny, closing comments.
Well, in closing, I will say that I think that Charlie Hebdo did have the right to do what they did. I've seen a lot of of their cartoons. Some of them were funny, some of them were just stupid, some of them were downright insulting, honestly, and that's okay. But was it always necessary to do it at the intensity that they did, at the time that they did it? I don't think so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny.
To Jenny and to Andrew, a warm round of applause. And to you guys for participating. There you go. No punches. We can be respectful.
An extra clap for Jenny, because I think a lot of people here are probably more on our argument because of the fact that this is our group. So give Jenny an extra clap, please.
Please do. Andrew had
it's hard to go into the lion's den, so give her a break.
So thank you very much. We'll take a 10-minute break, and afterwards, please stick around. We'll have a very interesting segment on freedom of speech moderated by Andrew. I can use this microphone as a weapon. All right, stick around. We'll be back in 10 minutes. You terrorist.